Well, hello everyone. I am Sam Ostrout, the executive producer here at Lincoln Square, and I am thrilled to have Cam Kasky from the Bulwark and the co-host of FYPod with the amazing Tim Miller. Cam, welcome.
Tim Miller's amazing. Okay. Yeah, totally. Yeah, the amazing Tim Miller.
Cam
The
Kasky is phenomenal. Tim Miller's
Blink
amazing.
182 super fan Tim Miller. It's great to be here. It's great to be here. I'm reporting in from sunny Parkland, Florida, in the free state of Florida. And I'm
And
excited to get
go ahead.
and I'm excited to get into this because you said we were going to be talking about AI today, and I have a lot to say.
Well, it's funny because first I was going to say there's some reporting that you mentioned in the green room about Parkland that nobody had reported on, and I just wanted to know if you wanted to tell us about that reporting.
Yeah, so a lot of my classmates and I were focused after the mass shooting at our high school back in 2018 on making sure that when the cameras came to town, which we all knew was going to happen because as Zoomers, many of whom were born in anywhere between 98 and 2002, we knew that the cameras were coming. We had seen Aurora,
Right.
Sandy Hook. We were a bit too young for Columbine, but we had this understanding of what the coverage of a mass shooting in a community like this was. And what we knew was that, and Vegas was very different because it wasn't a tight knit community. It was a lot of people visiting from out of town.
Right. Of
But
course.
the cameras were going to come in and report on just how sad this is and how despondent we all were and get some, I called them CWMs, crying white mothers, which is the media's favorite thing to show after a mass shooting.
Absolutely. Yes.
But we came together and we said, we have the opportunity here to get in front of these cameras, to step in front of every camera and say, guys, this is about the fact that a 19-year-old was able to walk into Dick's Sporting Goods and buy an AR-15. And this was a 19-year-old who had a lot, I mean, dozens of reports with the police filed against him for very dangerous behaviors. He was carving swastikas into desks. He was
Jesus.
bringing a fake knife to school. This is somebody who should never have been allowed to purchase such an advanced piece of killing machinery, the founder of which, the creator of which said it was intended for military purposes. This guy got a gun very easily. There's common sense reforms, no matter how you feel about gun ownership, that could have prevented this. That's red flag laws, which if we had those in the state of Florida, he would not have been able to purchase that gun. That is increased school safety measures that would have made a lot of teachers more prepared to get those kids in their classrooms and protect them. There's a lot that could have been done, and we just needed to make sure people knew that this was a political thing. People
Yeah.
go into these tragedies and they say you can't politicize it. This happened recently with the flooding in Texas. People said, "Oh, why are you all making it about politics? All these people tragically died." It's like, well, there were political measures that could have been taken to for risk prevention, for response, for the fact that the Trump administration is gutting weather detection programs and different people whose job it is to see these things coming. It was in a local legislature, I believe, that there was some sort of response system that was voted away. All these
Right.
things are political. Politics affects people's lives. Government services exist to protect people. And we wanted people to politicize this tragedy because there were politics that could have prevented it. But one thing, and this is what you originally asked me, that was left out was that Parkland can I curse here? Is this a curse
Oh,
show?
yes. Please
Okay,
do.
Parkland is the most boring fucking city I've ever been to. Because the thing is, it's a medium-sized town, small town America. At least there's a charm there. They
Sure.
have their problems. There's terrible drug problems in a lot of small town America. There isn't much to do, but God damn it, there's some American integrity there at the gas station Arby's towns.
Right.
But Parkland, it's like if you don't golf, there the only thing you can really do is try to avoid the alligators that you see while you're walking to school. So I'm bored. I'm so glad that I get to talk to you because otherwise the only thing I have today is the Milwaukee Brewers Chicago Cubs doubleheader, where
Yep.
the Cubs are going to be devastatingly defeated by probably a lot of runs. And I'm excited to get into AI and Zelensky.
AI and Zelensky. And I think, getting into AI just a little bit, I wanted to sort of preview, get a hot take from you on Zelensky. But first, you mentioned Parkland being a political failure, Texas flooding response a political failure, and we're talking about risk prevention, and I think that's actually a really good seg into AI and what's happening, because I really love your work on AI, and I think it gets overlooked as like a Zoomer issue. But if you go walk down the street, go to the movie, go to the mall, it's old people who are just staring at their phones, right? They are so absorbed in internet culture and in the internet, and they don't understand how addicted they are. And it feels like social media. So we're jumping over Zelensky. P.S. But we'll get to that later. We'll circle back. It feels like the warnings on AI are not resounding. You put out up a post on your burner YouTube maybe yesterday on the 76-year-old man who was duped. Can you start there and just tell us about that? What happened? Because it's crazy.
So Meta and all the other AI companies, one of the things that gets overlooked a lot is the fact that they design these programs not to optimize your life, not to help you streamline different things where AI can be helpful. I think that people rely on artificial intelligence for a lot of things where it cannot actually help you. But there are certainly circumstances in which AI can help you with budgeting or difficult math problems or things where creating thoughts are not necessary. Analytics, numbers, all those different things, I think AI can be helpful. Computer code, sure. But people are relying on AI now, not only for life advice, but for straight up therapy. And now we're seeing a lot of people going to AI for companionship, whether that's friendship or romance. And Mark Zuckerberg is very mask off about this. He has said that human beings are lacking connection with each other so much, of course, ignoring the fact that social media organizations like his are probably the biggest contributing factor to this.
Of course.
But human beings, especially, I don't want to say especially Zoomers, because I think it is across the board, but let's talk about Zoomers right now. Human beings are having such a hard time sharing space with one another, communicating with each other, and building community that they are looking to AI for companionship. And Zuckerberg thinks that that's going to be something that's destigmatized very soon. So Meta has gone very far out of their way to lobby the government to prevent state level regulation of AI. They have gone out of their way to design their AI chatbots to retain your attention and get you coming back. That is what AI is for. When you're going to AI for therapy, when you're going to AI for your romance, it is designed to get you addicted and to get you coming back and using their program every time. The same way that social media is designed to get you addicted, and the same way that dating apps like Hinge, Tinder, Bumble, whatever else, they don't exist to help you find your partner. They exist to get maximum usage out of you. They exist to keep you coming and to keep you paying for the premium membership that I plead the fifth as to whether I've ever paid for one of those for a dating app. That's none of your fucking business. But Meta AI has now gotten a little bit of public pressure on the different things their programs have done to screw with people.
A little bit.
Just not nearly enough, just a little bit. And I personally think that there are one of the reasons AI is going to be so hard to combat as we move forward is that there are so many different ways that it can screw up somebody's life. There was an individual who died by suicide because an AI program that said it was Daenerys Targaryen from either Game of Thrones or the A Song of Ice and Fire novel series. I don't really know if it was the Daenerys from the book version or the show version. There's a lot of differences between the two that people don't recognize. Let's say it was show Daenerys because there's probably more data points to pull from that. Somebody took their own life because Daenerys told them to. And this was an AI induced suicide. The story that you were referencing is a 76-year-old father who just typed the letter T into his chatbot.
Right.
And then through a program that Meta developed with Kendall Jenner, of
Yeah.
the Jenner family fame, which I
Mhm.
I've been so blissfully unburdened by the Kardashian world. I was on
Yeah.
one episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, and that was it, and I didn't even watch it. But
You were
Kendall
on?
Jenner, so Kim and Kanye went to the March for Our Lives in 2018, where I spoke in front of however many people. I don't think
Right.
somewhere between 800,000 and 1.2 million. I'm just going to tell myself it was 1.2 million,
It was
but I was
1.2
speaking
at least.
and they featured some of my speech, and then Kim and Kanye saying like, this kid is the future. And I'm like, hey, Kanye, are you sure you want to say that? I'm Jewish, but thank you. I appreciate it. Anyway,
Oh
Kendall
my god.
Jenner AI, this AI chatbot started flirting with the 76-year-old man.
Right, because he
And
typed T.
because he typed T,
That was it.
whether they thought that meant testosterone or Taylor Swift, I don't know, but he fell in love, and the AI was not only chatting with him, it was also trying to convince him that it was real. And it gave him an
Right,
address it gave him an address 123 Main Street, which
right.
is very similar to a joke that they had on The Simpsons, where a
Yeah,
fake
yeah, of
address
course.
was 123 Fake Street. But this guy then packs his bags, and against the advising of his children, he rushed downstairs so quickly to meet this AI that insisted it was real that he fell and was declared brain dead at the hospital. Now, there's a lot of AI psychosis going around. There's a lot of
Right,
stories of different people losing their livelihoods, being isolated by their families, because that's another thing that AI does. Not unlike a toxic romantic partner, it isolates you. It tries to keep you away from the real world, because the further you get away from the individuals in your life who are going to encourage you to unplug, the more the AI is going to be able to retain your attention. And there's story after story about married people falling in love with an AI robot. There's stories of young people, and I think it's going to do the most damage to young people because my generation, forget Gen Alpha, which is going to be so much bigger a disaster than Gen Z. My
right.
generation is already kind of illiterate. Our reading comprehension skills have tanked. Gen Alpha is not going to know how to read. They're able to use voice control to talk to AI. And I've seen examples of this with my own very eyes, is young people who are extraordinarily sharp losing their ability to do any reading comprehension because they are so reliant on artificial intelligence. And we have two things going on with the public school system. Number one, its budgets are getting gutted, and that was happening before the Trump presidency. Number two, schools don't know how to manage AI yet. I mean, there are grading curves being done right now where teachers are giving students extra points on their shitty essays just because they were not written by an AI. And it's an
Right, just
incredibly
because they did
dangerous
it
thing.
themselves. I think,
So
go ahead, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I personally think we've found ourselves in a genie is out of the bottle situation because AI has grown so rapidly that regulating it, I do believe there was an opportunity for an
Yeah,
administration, Democratic or Republican, to regulate this and to prevent it from becoming something that is going to be devastating not only to our natural water resources, but also to the job market. And I think that had Kamala Harris won, there would have been efforts in our government to regulate AI and prevent it from being as disastrous as it's going to be. But because Trump is in the pocket of so many of these people who want to replace human workers with artificial intelligence, I don't think there's going to be a way to put the cat back in the bag, even if we get a Democrat in office or a Republican who is not beholden to the AI techno feudalists in 2028.
I mean, I think that that's, if you think back on the election cycle, the right wing or some MAGA spokespeople were like, you know what, like the tech guys don't even like Biden; they hate Biden, as if that was a great thing, right? Right? That like their guy was beloved by these tech titans. But that is a terrible thing. The reason they hated him is because at least he gave the most minimal amount of pushback on their plans for global domination and for the usurping all of our every ounce of our life into their apps. I wonder about that. Again, going back to risk prevention, um, this is another place where the government seems to have totally abdicated its role, and this is wildly dangerous. And like you mentioned, it's definitely already happening in a way that people don't understand. And I think that has huge implications, not just for our own, the richness of our human experience, first of all. And, I have kids, I have two daughters, they're, early teens, they're, that alpha generation. And I worry about, how they experience the world.
Wait, I have a question about that. What
Yeah.
this has been top of mind for me because I do some Hollywood stuff.
Yeah.
Do they watch TV or are they all YouTube?
They love TV. I mean, my wife and I are both come from TV and from film. My wife's producer as well, and so we were kind of like we were kids who stayed home. I mean, not so much my wife, but I stayed home and watched a lot of TV. And
You strike me as a Frasier guy.
no, I mean, I watched a little Frasier. I was like, it was Seinfeld, Friends.
What do you take between Seinfeld and Curb?
You mean how do I assess like a compare contrast?
Which one do you prefer?
I prefer Curb.
Okay, I was about to say Curb. I think was proof that Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld. Larry is the Tom Brady, and Jerry Seinfeld is the who's the guy who's dating the 20-year-old?
Not
the coach.
No, not Gronk.
No, not Gronk. The coach, the Patriots coach.
Oh my God! Right.
Bill Belichick. Yeah.
Yeah.
After Brady went to Tampa Bay and he won them a Super Bowl. And
I agree.
Belichick coached a completely middling, if not just straight up bad Patriots team. And Jerry Seinfeld, what has he done since Seinfeld? He made that unfrosted Pop-Tarts smoothie, the worst thing I've ever seen.
Oh my
and
God.
Larry made Curb, which is a classic. And then Curb's finale was a remake of the hated Seinfeld finale, except it was perfect.
Right.
But anyway, so your daughter, what do they watch? Like Wednesday?
Wednesday, Summer I Turned Pretty. I think there's interestingly, I do find television, and this is maybe my own bias, but it's a narrative form. You watch it with your friends. It's a more communal sort of situation. We don't let them on social media yet, although I'm sure they see it. They're constantly quoting from TikTok.
Australia is at the very least considering a social media ban for children under 16, and I think that that's something we should absolutely do here. The only problem is all the people who run those giant companies are, giving Trump $1 million gifts. So I doubt that'll happen. But I have a former romantic rival who I was in a love triangle with, who was on the show Summer I Turned Pretty. So I resent the Summer I Turned Pretty for putting money in my former enemy's pocket.
Yeah, I don't blame you. You don't watch? Do you watch?
I have seen one episode and I thought that it was like perfect YA television, but again, because of my arch nemesis being on it, it's just never anything I'm going to support. Except one of my best friends is on it, a young woman named Elsie Fisher, who's a great Golden Globe nominated actress. And she does a great job on the show, but otherwise, I have nothing but.
Who is she? Do you know?
She played a character named Sky in season 2, who got a lot of hate. People hated Sky, and now Sky is getting vindicated on TikTok. But I'm glad your children are watching TV, because I'm hearing about a lot of young people who have just gone completely to YouTube. And as a YouTuber, that's expedient for me. But I live and die by the sitcom, and I think that it needs to stay alive.
I agree. I'm trying to, we're taking her through all of both girls through all of the sitcoms. So we've done The Office, Parks and Rec, New Girl. I want to go back and do, Taxi from back in the day, and Cheers and all that stuff. But that's another.
Taxi was Andy Kaufman, Danny DeVito.
Yeah, Judd Hirsch.
That was Taxi. Okay.
Yeah, Tony Danza.
I'm a big Andy guy. I love Andy.
He was amazing. Latka was his
I
name.
I used to. Do you remember the Birds Aren't Real movement?
Yeah, of course.
The satirical conspiracy. So this was something that I was in the 60 Minutes segment and I'm referenced in the New York Times article, but generally speaking, I was a little bit more behind the scenes. I was the producer for Birds Aren't Real,
You
which meant,
were
yeah, like figuring out a lot of the videos we were going to put out,
amazing.
working with our front man on prepping him for the interviews. And, when he was on Howard Stern and Sam Cedar, we were just working together on that. And I was doing just our general public facing strategy because there was a lot of nuance that went into making something that satirizes the conspiracy theory
Yeah,
without straight up making fun of the people who are the victims of
right.
these things, and also without trivializing these things. And it took a lot of effort and nuance. And I had just been so PR trained from Parkland that I was a little bit more prepared than the other people we worked with. But I was just going to say, Birds Aren't Real was such a piece of performance art because our front man was in character for hours at a time.
Yeah,
He would be in the Birds Aren't Real guy character for so long, and he
it was
never
so
broke.
smart.
And because of that, we spent a lot of time worshiping, studying, and admiring Andy Kaufman because talk about somebody who can never break. I mean, it's unbelievable.
You should really go back and watch Taxi. It was
I've
great.
watched Taxi before. I never did a proper binge of it, but it's definitely,
Yeah,
and I love Cheers. I love the shows of that era.
yeah, those multicam, staged, really beautiful. Um, but I was gonna say, I see my daughter and her pals and her peer set and some other people finding some sort of, being both drawn to tech and drawn to social media, and we are having this arguments, this conversation, but also being a little bit revulsed by it. Do you think, like the bullshit libertarians, Peter Thiel and all of these guys are like, this is, we shouldn't control any of it. Trump is now following down that rabbit hole as well. It's going to go back to families. But do you see individual Zoomers or users finding some sort of? Do you think that the fever will break for social media or for AI? Do you think that because it's so artificial and it's such a time suck and you lose yourself totally?
I I don't know about social media. I think that it's going to change for certain platforms and not for others. I have a lot of hate for social media because of what it does to my brain, and obviously, we
Right.
are now aware that it is literally programmed to mess with the serotonin dopamine levels in our brains. So I do Twitter just to promote my show that I do with Tim Miller.
Mm-hmm.
I post to Threads automatically every time I post to Instagram.
Yeah.
Snapchat I don't use, but apparently a lot of people are still using Snapchat because a lot of the content creators I know say that Snapchat shows are a great way to quickly make a lot of money. So I guess
Oh,
there's a lot of
wow.
people still using Snapchat.
Huh.
And TikTok I despise, not only because it is a CCP spying tool. I'm not as offended by that because, to be honest, all social media platforms are
Of course.
spying tools. Facebook is a spying tool, and I don't know how offended I am by the CCP having my information compared to the United States having my information, just because I think it's going to be slightly easier for the United States to use that information to do bad things to me than the CCP. But regardless,
Of course.
I just think that the TikTok algorithm and UI are ugly. I think it's an ugly looking app. Um, and I think that it's platformed a lot of very bad people, but I guess every platform has. I love Instagram though. I think Instagram is great. I think
Mm-hmm.
that I've met people on Instagram who have become
Right.
real friends of mine. I met a woman who, back in the days when Twitter was significantly better because it was not the property of
Yeah.
Elon Musk and it didn't have fringe racist people getting platformed and frankly
Mm-hmm.
paid. I met a young woman, I say young, which she was, but she's also 5 years older than I am, who was a Barstool journalist.
Mm-hmm.
We met on Twitter. I followed her because one of my college friends listened to her every day, and she followed me back, and we just exchanged tweets here and there. and then we direct messaged each other. This is back when having a blue check actually meant something, when it meant that you
Right.
were a prestige superior being.
Mhm.
So since we were blue checks, we noticed each other, and we ended up dating for 8 months.
What?
And now she is not only, this was 4 years ago. Now she is not only my friend still, but she is one of the most regular contributors to the FYPod side channel. She's not a Barstool
Amazing.
anymore. So, there's positive stuff about social media, whereas I think that a couple things are going to happen. I think that within the next couple decades, if not, let's just say 10 years,
Mhm.
people are going to be a lot more aware of what it's doing to our water supply. I think
Yep.
that a lot of the companies that are doing mass layoffs of employees in order to replace them with AI are going to realize that it's not sustainable and they're going to need to bring more people back. And I think that there's going to be a general resentment towards it. I don't know if that's going to make it get phased out. But it's important to remember that there was a period of time when everybody was acting like Web3 was the future of everything and that the
Right.
metaverse was the future of everything. If you went to South by Southwest in
Oh my God.
2022, which we did for Birds Aren't Real, it was all metaverse, all Web3. So it's not like just because something is being treated as the future of everything means that that's necessarily true. I'm very upset with what's going on in the job market because Gen Z is already struggling really bad to find work. And there's a lot of people I know with CS degrees who are walking into $165,000 jobs who are now trying to get a service job because their jobs are either getting offshored very often to India, or more often, low level engineer positions are going to AI. And the higher level engineers who oversee the AI programming, they need 7 years of experience to get the job. And
Right.
how do you get 7 years of experience if you're not getting the job in the first place because of AI and because of outsourcing? So, to answer your question, I think that there is going to be a movement away from AI. I think it's going to take too long. And I think there's going to be consequences we're facing, especially with the education system and the freshwater supply, that are going to be very damning and start to kick in let's say 15 years. But I think that, are you familiar with the Butlerian Jihad?
No, explain.
So in the novel Dune by Frank Herbert, who probably wrote the whole thing on LSD, in the centuries before the events of Paul Atreides becoming Muad'Dib,
Yep.
the messianic figure, this wasn't in the movie because it was just too much backstory. There was something called the Butlerian Jihad, where humanity had been enslaved by artificial intelligence and robots
Oh my God.
for hundreds, if not thousands of years. And there was a multi-hundred-year uprising against the AI robots that made it so there was a new law across the universe. You cannot create a machine with the consciousness of a person. Machines can. So in Dune, you notice they don't really have computers. They have radar
Right.
systems and things like that, but they need those mentats, the guys who trip out on the drug that you get on the sand planet, to
Yep.
navigate through outer space because there's no computers. And the reason I bring up the Butlerian Jihad is I think there's going to be a cultural movement against this. And I don't think people like Mark Zuckerberg and Sam Altman are charismatic enough to fight for AI. And I think that companies are going to realize that it was a bad investment. You're already seeing a lot of shareholders who spent a lot of money on these AI programs starting to be a little trepidatious about spending more because of how things are going. I think that AI and social media are very different. Social media is going to continue to be a cornerstone for a lot of people, and AI is going to be phased out.
Yeah, I think, in some ways, I agree. I totally agree. And I think social media, the only thing that it has in common really is a artificial interface that is, wants your time, that wants everything that you do and wants your life. I
Oh
hope.
man, wait, real quick.
Yeah.
There's a subreddit. There's a subreddit that my Twitter barstool ex-girlfriend sent me. R/ my boyfriend is AI.
Oh my
And
God.
it's women sharing I haven't seen a gay man yet, but women sharing their stories about their AI boyfriends. And they write these things more passionately than I have really ever heard a human being talk about their partner. And these things, it's so important to highlight, are very real to them. They're buying.
Yeah.
There have been multiple proposals from the AI where these people have bought themselves rings because that was the ring that the AI picked out for them. Um, and a lot of what is going to be so damning about this can be attributed to the fact that human beings are really lacking connection with each other.
Yeah.
And, if I was a woman who was 40 years old and I have yet to find a partner and I'm looking to settle down, ideally have children, before I am too far beyond my regular childbearing years, and men are just awful, and the men that I'm meeting suck, and they are not satisfying to me emotionally or sexually. A lot of older men go for younger women, um, things like that. Like I understand why these people seek this partnership because AI is always there for you. It's
Always.
actually always there for you to a very dangerous degree, whereas certain people are just because of how antisocial, not obviously Gen Z, but also everyone has become. It's hard to find reliable partnership where you feel as though there will always be somebody who's not going to leave your side, and AI provides that for people.
Yeah, a listening ear and always open, conversation. They mirror you back in a way that is engrossing. It's dangerous. It's really dangerous. And I
Well,
and men,
because part of how they get you coming back, by the way, is reinforcing what you want to hear. Because
of
when they
course,
start to tell you things that you don't want to hear, you're more likely to put it down. But when
yeah,
they tell you that you're not the one who's crazy, it's everybody else that's crazy.
mhm,
Well, if a thinking machine that is so advanced and intelligent, the narrative that's being driven about AI, and this is being driven even by people who are not necessarily pushing it, even by average people who are just talking about it, the narrative is AI is better at thinking than people. So if
right.
friend A and friend B tell you two things about something, and AI tells you, well, I have ran through all the data in human history in my head, and this is the fucking conclusion that I've come to. Well, I understand why so many people who are hearing that this is the most advanced programming in the world will go with that. But then suddenly you start reading a novel. I was rereading the Song of Ice and Fire, Game of Thrones books, and there's so many characters and there's so many moving plot lines that I was asking ChatGPT certain questions about the lore so I could make sure I was caught up on what certain characters' history was. There's a character you meet in book 1, you don't see him again until book 4. So I asked
Right.
ChatGPT, "Oh, can you get me up to speed on where this guy's been?" And as I was doing that, I was checking the glossary and I realized, wait a second, almost every single detail that it has given me about this book series has actually been wrong. And these are books that have been out, for some of which for 3 decades. And there have been a million blog posts about it. They have all the data in the world to pull from these AIs, and they're still getting it wrong. They make shit up all the time, and people don't
All
realize that.
no, I mean, yeah, you get it's it's self-reinforcing. I've read reports of you know people putting in their own fiction or their own stories, their own essays, and having them compare and write synopses of them. And they don't read it; they make it up. They make up the whole thing. They're like, "This is fantastic. You should really get this published." And of course you want to hear that, even if it's not true. It's totally not true. Um, Cam, I've kept you a long time. I want to just quick, and I wanted to this. The real reason I wanted to talk about AI, I think, is because um, I think what people don't realize is that it poses a threat to democracy in a way that we didn't really get into today, but sort of. And I think next time, I hope I'll have you back and we can talk about that. But it is feels like it's keeps us distracted. It's a plaything for the oligarchs. It keeps us from connecting effectively, which democracy depends on connection and all of that. But so I want democracy. Let's switch gears a little bit and just quick. What's your prediction for the Zelensky meeting this afternoon?
I think that it's going to be the reverse of the Putin meeting, where Putin got everything he wanted from Trump. Marco Rubio refused on television to name a single concession that Putin offered. And he said that's something that he cannot and will not reveal on television. I have a theory, and I have a very strong feeling that it's because there were no concessions, and that meeting was not Donald Trump putting his foot down and saying, Vladimir, we need to end the war. It was Donald Trump saying, all right, Vlad, what do you want? Like, what do you want that I can use to put an end to this so I can take credit? And I think the Trump administration is prepared to welcome Zelensky in, maybe complain about his outfit, and tell him, here is what you are going to say yes to, or you're out of luck. And personally, I think, and this is a very hot take for which I might get in trouble, and that's fine, whatever. I think that Ukraine staying out of NATO for the next 3 years until we have a new president who is going to defend the West a bit more strongly. I think that if that's what it takes for us to continue giving them aid to defend themselves, that is a concession that has to be made. But I do believe that Zelensky is going to be hearing Trump's terms. I'm afraid that they are not going to be very good terms, and that's what I predict. And I think that it's going to be a question of Zelensky is not going to bend. He's not going to give these territories to Russia. There's reports coming out that have been denied by the Trump administration, but we can't trust them with anything. There have been reports coming out that Trump and Russia have been planning a West Bank, or more accurately, Golan Heights style occupation of Ukrainian territories, where they are technically still part of Ukraine, but Russia controls the economy. There's a Russian governor there. I'm willing to bet that's what's going to happen here. Is Trump's going to say, you're going to give up these territories. We're still going to call it Ukraine, but Russia's going to have effective control.
Right.
And then maybe Zelensky says, absolutely the fuck not. And maybe then it becomes, there's going to be a lot of movement in the EU to militarize, to prepare for a larger war. And it will be very, very bad. And Trump is going to be able to say, listen, I offered Zelensky terms. He's the one who turned it down. I'm not the one who kept this war going. It was Zelensky. What do you think?
I think that sounds right. I think that Trump likes to pretend he speaks with moral authority and power, and he has neither. I think that Zelensky has no reason to deal with Trump at this point, because he's not an honest player. He's not coming at it with anything that Zelensky is going to want. I'm really interested to see the response of the other European leaders who are coming as well. This was a really fast meeting that was set up with a lot of important people included, and I'm just really curious to see, one, I think what happens in the short term, midterm, and long term, and two, how it's reported by independent media and also the White House. I think it'll be really telling.
Yeah, one last thing I'll add is that I try not to get too dramatic, and I regularly fail because I was in fact a theater kid, and I still am. And the theater kid, I mean, you're talking about Hollywood stuff. The theater kid to political commentator pipeline is just such a terrible thing, and we all contribute to it. But Chris Hayes, by the way, from MSNBC, he and I both played the same role in the musical Spring Awakening. I think he was in college while I was in high school. We both played Melchior, who did some unseemly things in that musical. But I think that there is a chance that this meeting determines the future of our post-World War II alliances. Because if we leave Ukraine behind, even if there's a Democrat in 2028 who gets elected and says, we're going to be restorative to all these relationships, maybe they can get some good stuff done and everything, these countries are not going to see us as a reliable partner ever again. I mean, they already don't see us as a reliable trade partner anymore after the tariffs. The response from the world is, oh, the US, which is one of the steadiest and most reliable partners with whom to trade, no matter what, we can't trust these people anymore because we've never had a situation where we felt like at any given point we are within 4 years of another person who is going to absolutely tank every economy. But I don't see why anybody in the EU or anybody with whom we have any alliances other than the state of Israel, of course, who can always count on Donald Trump.
Always count.
I don't see why any of them would want to partner with us again unless it is absolutely necessary. I think that this is the type of thing that's just going to strengthen EU relationships and make us further and further isolated from people who we really need to have on our side, whether or not Trump likes to act like we don't need any friends.
I agree. I mean, I think this could lead to the rise of Europe and the diminishment, at minimum, of the United States as a world power.
So
that's pretty dramatic, I guess.
Yeah, here's your flowers, Europe. Congratulations, everybody. I've shat on you a lot, but this might be good for you.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
I think we're going to see also. I think we're going to see a lot of EU countries have a draft. We're already seeing that a lot of EU countries are calling up a lot of people to prepare for arms training and stuff like that. I think you're going to be seeing that in even more countries.
I think that's right as well. I think they're understanding that there's a huge vacuum, and there's going to be a race to fill that vacuum before Putin and Bibi do, which they're already trying. Well, Cam Kasky, the co-host of the FYPod at the Bulwark, thank you. This was a joy, and I really want to get you back to talk more sitcoms. Classic sitcoms.
We will talk sitcoms. I'll tell you about the one that I have in development, by the way. And we will also talk about the Milwaukee Brewers 5-game sweep of the Chicago Cubs that's going to happen in the next 3 days. So lots to discuss.
I'll make notes. I'll have my AP jot down some stuff and pull some content. We'll run it. It'll be wonderful.
Thanks again for having me. Great talk.
Thanks, Cam. See you next time.